Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well and welcome to another dinosaur species profile and habitat recreation guide in Jurassic World Evolution 2. In this episode, I will be telling you everything that paleontologists know about the Ceratosaurus, a medium-sized theropod that lived in the present-day United States during the late Jurassic period. During the time of its discovery, it was the most complete theropod fossil discovered in the United States. With its distinctive head ornamentation, Ceratosaurus is an instantly recognizable theropod, and its unique appearance has lent it to great popularity. While the general public may not immediately know its scientific name, they have most likely seen it in films, television, museums, and books about dinosaurs. I've split up the video into three parts. The first part will go over the description, paleontological history, and the environment of Ceratosaurus, while the next part will be an attempt to accurately recreate the natural environment of Ceratosaurus in its enclosure based on what paleontologists know. Finally, the third part will consist of Ceratosaurus companions, or other dinosaurs that it coexisted with, along with its detailed history within the Jurassic Park franchise and popular culture. So, let's start getting to learn more about the Ceratosaurus, a carnivore whose unique horn on its nose gave it an appearance reminiscent of early Victorian depiction of dinosaurs. Its early discovery allowed the Ceratosaurus to cement itself as a mainstay of popular culture theropods. For those who like to skip ahead, I add some timestamps for you to click. For everyone else, let's begin. Ceratosaurus was a carnivorous theropod dinosaur that lived during the late Jurassic period from about 153 to 148 million years ago. Its species name, Carnotaurus nasicornis, was known only from North America, but fossil remains of other possible species have been found in Portugal and Tanzania. Both parts of its species name refers to its unique horn on top of its snout. Ceratosaurus means horned reptile, while Nasicornis means nose horns. Ceratosaurus was a medium-sized theropod, with its holotype specimen measuring at around 18 feet long and weighing 1,200 pounds, although a specimen believed to be of Ceratosaurus has been measured at 23 feet long and weighing around 1,500 pounds. The distinctive nasal horn of Ceratosaurus was made from an extension of the nasal ones at the snout of the skull. The horn itself is not a single growth, but the fusing of two growths from separate bones. While the base of the horn core was smooth, its upper two-thirds were wrinkled and lined with grooves that would probably have contained blood vessels when alive. These nasal horns were probably not used as a weapon, as was probably suggested by early paleontologists, but most likely was used fully for display. The skull was relatively large in proportion to the rest of its body, measuring at about 22 inches in length. This length allowed for very long, slender teeth in its upper jaw. These teeth could be over 3.5 inches long, nearly as long as the lower jaw was deep, so that it will almost stick out beyond it when the mouth was closed. Paleontologists aren't sure why the teeth were so long or how strong its bite force was, but some suggest that its bite was used to help inflict deep, slashing wounds in its prey. Ceratosaurus may have preyed upon ornithomimids, hadrosaurs, and sauropods, although some paleontologists have suggested that it hunted aquatic prey such as turtles and fish. There is some evidence to support this theory, as the tail of Ceratosaurus was quite flexible and supported by high vertebral spines. It has also been suggested that if Ceratosaurus ever took to the water, the tail would have been a powerful swimming aid, using it in a similar fashion as crocodiles and alligators. Another interesting feature that seems to make Ceratosaurus unique on sauropods were the osteoderms that ran down the middle of the neck, back, and tail. Although the purpose for these is not exactly known, some paleontologists have theorized that they were used for protection during intraspecific combat or against much larger theropods that Ceratosaurus shared its environment with. Additional osteoderms were present in unknown position on the animal's body. Their forelimbs were very short but remained fully functional, and the hand had just 4 fingers. This is typically an indication that this theropod was relatively primitive, whose ancestral relatives are from the earlier times of the mid-Triassic to mid-Jurassic periods, when sea life residents and Ceratosaurians were much more prevalent. Ceratosaurus was an early member of a larger group called Ceratosauria, which later diversified in the Cretaceous of South America and Africa, including species such as Carnotaurus and Majungasaurus. At the time it was discovered, it was the most complete theropod fossil discovered in the United States. The remarkable completeness with which a Carnotaurus was found allowed paleontologists new insight into its physiology. Ceratosaurus was first discovered in Garden Park, Colorado by an American farmer named Marshall Parker Felch in 1883. This garden park area is also known as Felch Quarry 1 and is regarded as one of the richest fossil sites of the Morrison Formation. The Ceratosaurus specimen was found encased in hard sandstone. The skull and spine had been heavily distorted during fossilization, so it took about a year for the complete excavation of the fossils. After excavation, the fossils were shipped to the Peabody Museum of Natural History in New Haven, where it was studied by famous paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh. In 1884, he published his research and described the fossils as a new genus and species, which he named Ceratosaurus nasicornis. As mentioned earlier, during this time, this new species would be the most complete theropod fossil discovered in the United States. The unique nasal horn of Ceratosaurus garnered the focus of Marsh, and he theorized that it could have been used as a most powerful weapon for attacking and defending purposes. However, this is no longer considered likely, especially when you compare Ceratosaurus to other theropod dinosaurs with head crests such as Dilophosaurus, Monolophosaurus, and Guanlong, which are all more likely for a visual display purpose. By 1892, after years of research, Marsh published the first skeletal reconstruction of Ceratosaurus, which depicted the dinosaur at a rather odd upright position, measuring 22 feet in length and 12 feet in height. In 1898 and 1899, the Ceratosaurus specimens were then transferred to the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. During the packaging and shipment from New Haven to Washington, D.C., though, some damage was caused to the Ceratosaurus specimen. Then, a more accurate life reconstruction was published by an American painter, Joseph M. Gleason, in 1901, under the supervision of Charles R. Knight, who was an American wildlife and paleo artist best known for his detailed paintings of dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals. His work has been reproduced in many books and are currently on display at several major museums in the United States. The holotype was mounted by Charles W. Gilmore in 1910 and 1911, and for those who don't know, Charles W. Gilmore was an American paleontologist who gained major recognition in the field of paleontology for his work on vertebrate fossils during his career at the National History Museum. The odd posture of the holotype of Ceratosaurus would change in 1920, when Gilmore himself published an extensive redescription of Ceratosaurus and other theropod specimens received from New Haven, including the nearly complete Allosaurus specimen recovered from the same quarry. This redesign went against the original reconstruction of Ceratosaurus, which showed it standing in an upright posture with its tail dragging on the ground. Gilmore's redesign, in contrast, was ahead of its time. Inspired by the upper thigh bones, which were found angled against the lower leg, he depicted the new skeletal mount as a running animal with a horizontal rather than an upright posture, and a tail that did not make contact with the ground. His published findings also realized that the trunk that was originally depicted was much too long, having added at least 6 dorsal vertebrae too many. Due to the strong distortion that happened during fossilization, Gilmore mounted the Ceratosaurus specimen not as a freestanding skeleton, but as a mostly flat sculpture which was embedded into the wall of the museum. If you're interested, you can visit it today, as it is still being exhibited at the National Museum of History in Washington, D.C. This Garden Park specimen remains one of the most complete skeletons known from its genus, and only a handful of additional specimens have been discovered since. These additional remains would not be found until the 1960s, when James Madsen, first ever state paleontologist in Utah or anywhere else, and his team unearthed a fragmentary skeleton, including the skull in the Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry in Utah, which represents one of the largest known Ceratosaurus specimens, measuring about 24 feet in length. A subadult was eventually found in Freesia, Colorado in 1976 by paleontologist Thor Erickson, and in 2000, paleontologist Samuel Paul Wells suggested that the large specimen from Utah should belong to a new species, C. dentisculatus, while the smaller species from Colorado should likewise be classified as C. magnicornis. However, not all modern paleontologists agree, suggesting instead that these two represent growth stages and not distinct species. A further specimen was discovered in 1992 in the Agata Basin Quarry southeast of Muir, Utah, but still awaits description. This specimen, considered the largest known from the genus, includes the front half of the skull, 7 fragmentary pelvic dorsal vertebrae, and an articulated pelvis and sacrum. In 1999, Britt reported the discovery of a Ceratosaurus skeleton belonging to a juvenile individual. Discovered in Bone Cabin Quarry in Wyoming, it is 34% smaller than the C. nasicornis holotype and consists of a complete skull, as well as 30% of the remainder of the skeleton, including a complete pelvis. Besides these 5 skeletal finds, Fragmentary Ceratosaurus remains have been reported from various localities from stratigraphic zones of the Morrison Formation, including some of the major fossil sites of the formation. A couple of years back in 1985, British paleontologist David Norman had published his findings on the nasal horns of Ceratosaurus. He believed that the horn was probably not for protection against other predators, but might instead have been used for intraspecific combat amongst male Ceratosaurus contending for breeding rights. Gregory S. Paul in 1988 suggested a similar function and illustrated two Ceratosaurs engaged in a non-lethal butting contest. But in 1990, paleontologist Rowan Gauthier went further, suggesting that the nasal horn of Ceratosaurus was probably used for display purposes alone, and played no role in physical confrontations. If used for display, the horn likely would have been brightly colored. But while it's still up for debate, the use of the horn for display seems to be the general consensus amongst most paleontologists. Back to its fossil finds, some remains outside of North America have also been attributed to Ceratosaurus. Fragmentary remains have been reported from the Tendaguru Formation in Tanzania, the Lourinhã Formation in Portugal, and near Montier, Switzerland, but their assignment to Ceratosaurus is currently not accepted by most paleontologists. But if true, it shows that Ceratosaurus had a wide range during its era, living in different kinds of environments. Now that we have some history on Ceratosaurus, we will learn about the environment which it lived in to give us a better idea of how to replicate its natural habitat. All of the North American Ceratosaurus fossil finds comes from the Morrison Formation, a sequence of shallow marine and alluvial sedimentary rocks located in the western part of the United States and known as the most fertile source of dinosaur fossils in the continent. The area known as the Morrison Formation consisted of a semi-arid environment with distinct wet and dry seasons, flat floodplains, semi-arid open countries, and scattered forests of coniferous trees and other flora. This flora of this period has been revealed by fossils of green algae, fungi, mosses, horsetails, cycads, ginkgos, and several families of conifers. It is theorized that Ceratosaurus ended up being sidelined by the Allosaurus in North America, as evidenced by the fact that Ceratosaurus is one of the rarest theropod genus present in the Morrison Formation. It most likely became a prowler of heavily forested areas and some water sources, using its sharp teeth when ambushing prey. Paleontologists theorized that Ceratosaurus would ambush prey from the cover of the forest, chasing it down until the prey was exhausted and delivering a fatal bite. While its jaws were not as strong as those of other theropods, its speed and endurance was excellent, allowing it to hunt via ambush and pursuit. A crepuscular hunter, it had good senses that allowed it to track prey in dim conditions. Fragmentary fossil remains suggest that the other species of Ceratosaurus may have lived in the parts of Laurasia that developed into Europe, as well as North America. Its range may have included the islands that give rise to Portugal and Switzerland, while some paleontologists also suggest that this genus had a presence in Gondwana to the south, particularly the developing African continent. About 148 million years ago, though, this dinosaur seems to have gone extinct, probably due to the changes in the environment that it could not adapt quickly enough. Hey guys, welcome back. As you can see, I have our little Ceratosaurus enclosure ready to go. I expanded the park just a bit, and to those who've been following along, we have our Carnotaurus enclosure from our last video. I'll be adding the rest of the dinosaurs that I've done videos on, but for now, let's just focus on the Ceratosaurus. This one's going to be a bit different. A lot of foliage in this one. We're going to use a lot of foliage, just because this guy, since Allosaurus was the apex predator of the area, this guy tended to just stick around in areas where there are a lot of forest, areas with some water, some floodplains, some lakes, some rivers, but mostly tended to stick to forests to hide from the Allosaurus. So we'll go ahead and recreate that. This will be our little open area where this guy would go ahead and ambush for prey such as goats and other little dinos that would pop out from around that area. So let's go ahead and begin. Let's expand the little lake just a bit, not too much. And that's good enough. Let's cut just a little bit of the river out, make it a little bit unnatural. Go ahead, play with it. And I think that's good. Let's actually make a little bit more chunk. There you go. There you go. Perfect. And this area, let's go ahead and use some cycads. Lots of cycads here, because they're near the water. And let's get away. And let's actually get rid of that fence in the background. Let's go ahead and use some seed plants. And there we go, perfect, just what I needed. At the end of the day, you can mess around how you like. Our Ceratosaurus over there, got ourselves a nice little go. But moving on, you can go ahead if you want, use some sand here. I'm gonna be just connecting both sides of the enclosure. Throw in some sand here. I think that's where we're gonna be using most of our sand. Everything else is gonna be more green, let's say. And then let's continue with forest. Let's put some forest here. Get rid of those fences in the background. We have some good nice forest, but let's go ahead and fill it in with some ginkgos. A lot of ginkgos are in this area. Some horsetails we're gonna be, replacing here and there. Forest, the ones that we don't like. I kind of don't like the palm trees. Gonna stick up pretty weirdly. At the end of the day, it's up to you. Go ahead and use some Temskia, which are horsetails. Put in more horsetails every now and then. Oh, didn't want to replace that ginkgo there, but alright, we'll leave it like that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, just play along with it, do what you want. I like the ginkgos a lot more, so a bit more ginkgos. There we go, that's perfect actually. And let's actually start encroaching it just a bit. Like I said, there's going to be our open area, but at the same time, let's go ahead and add some ground cover, plants over here, starting to approach. And I think we got ourselves a nice little, very, very thick foliage enclosure. If you want, you could even include some ginkgos here. People aren't watching. You can go ahead and put another one over here. And let's say if it's going to allow us. There we go. Perfect. Go ahead and do that. Put a couple more seed plants. There we go. That's actually perfect. Over here. Get a nice combination of each one. I think this looks good, guys. At the end of the day, like I said, you can go ahead and mix some stuff around. I think this looks pretty good. Let's actually switch in some ginkgos. And in terms of terrain, let's go ahead and do a little bit of dirt here where our jeeps are going to be passing through. Nice little tip I read on Reddit. And yeah, you can just go ahead and put some dirt around this enclosure where you think, a lot of dirt here because they're going to be eating a lot. Kind of traversing these areas, so, put some dirt where you think our Ceratosaurus would be walking around. Kicking up the dirt while he runs. So look, this guy's running. Let's put some dirt here. And there's some rocks, so you can actually rat some rocks. Get a bit of a nice tapestry going. And let's just finish it off with some rocks. So we'll add some rocks here. I like to bunch them up, but in this one, let's actually separate them just a bit. We'll add a couple of rocks here. One next to those in the back, next to the fences. Sort of barriers. You can use them as kind of barriers, if you will. But not too many. Or else it starts looking unnatural, which is kind of what I'm hoping doesn't look like. But I think it's fine. Actually fine. So what do you think, guys? It's very, very foresty. Might not be able to see them immediately, but they're there. But this is kind of habitat that they lived in because Allosaurus, other large theropods were around, so they kind of wanted to stay low and have a nice little area to themselves where they could not be accosted by the Allosaurus and the other guys. So this is what we have. Let me know what you guys think. And that's it. Thank you all for watching. If you want to make Ceratosaurus feel more at home, you're gonna add some dinosaurs that it coexisted with during its era. You will have to play around with your sandbox options to help with the compatibility issues. In the Morris information, most Ceratosaurus fossils are frequently found along with those of other large theropods, including the large megalosaurid Torvosaurus and the Allosaurus. Ceratosaurus shared this habitat with these other large theropods and had been suggested that each dinosaur occupied different ecological niche to reduce competition. One must remember that Allosaurus was the ultimate apex predator of the time, and his fossil remains reflect that. Other theropod fauna were outnumbered by Allosaurus at an average rate of 7.5 to 1 in sites where they would co-occur. Osteoderms are often evolved as a form of defense, and if this were the case with Ceratosaurus, then it could suggest that these larger theropods could not think twice about attacking Ceratosaurus. A study done in 2004 by paleontologist Robert Backer suggested that Ceratosaurus primarily specialized in aquatic prey such as lungfish, crocodiles, and turtles. To test this theory, analysis done on numerous teeth from separate localities showed that both Ceratosaurus and Megalosaurids were most common in habitats in and around water sources such as wet floodplains, lakes, and swamps. But Ceratosaurus also occasionally wandered in terrestrial localities. Allosaurids, however, were equally common in terrestrial and aquatic habitats. From these results, Backer concluded that Ceratosaurus and Megalosaurids must have predominantly hunted near and within water bodies, with Ceratosaurus also feeding on carcasses of larger dinosaurs on occasion. Other dinosaurs known from the Morrison Formation include theropods Lycopodium, a small theropod that is known only from a single tooth, Stogosaurus, a small turkey-sized tyrannosaurid, and Ornitholestes, another of the first theropod dinosaurs discovered in the 20th century. Ornithischians such as the 26-foot-long Camptosaurus, the fast and nimble 6-foot Dryosaurus, the elusive and cat-sized Othnielia shared the landscape, alongside armored dinosaurs such as the 10-foot Gigolosaurus and the more heavily built Stegosaurus. Not to forget that during this time, the dominant species were the giant sauropods like the Supersaurus, Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, Aplocanthosaurus, Gyrosaurus, Brachiosaurus, and the smaller Camarasaurus. Other vertebrates that shared this paleo environment include ray fin fishes, frogs, salamanders, turtles like Dorsodochelys, sphenodonts, lizards, terrestrial and several species of pterosaurs such as Harpacognathus and Mesodactylus. Partial Ceratosaurus specimens indicate its presence in the Lourinhã Formation in Portugal. Many of these dinosaurs of the Lourinhã Formation are the same genera as those in the Morrison Formation or have some close counterpart. Ceratosaurus might have encountered Lourinhãosaurus, another large theropod whose remains have only been found in this region. Herbivorous dinosaurs also found in this region include sauropods such as Dinerosaurus and Zvi, as well as the 20-foot Stegosaurus Miragia. During the late Jurassic, Europe had just been separated from North America by the still narrow Atlantic Ocean, and Portugal, as part of the Iberian Peninsula, was still separated from other parts of Europe. According to paleontologist Mateos and colleagues, the similarity between the Portuguese and North American theropod faunas indicate the presence of a temporary land bridge, allowing for faunal interchange. However, this theory is pretty controversial and has not been accepted by many paleontologists. Ceratosaurus has not been referenced much in the Jurassic Park franchise, with only a small screen appearance in Jurassic Park III. What is known is that Ceratosaurus was successfully recreated by InGen on Isla Sorna in secret, after the acquisition of InGen by Masrani Global Corporation and after the pass of the Gene Act, alongside Ceratosaurus, Spinosaurus, and Ankylosaurus. The only known lab Ceratosaurus was patented and fed in captivity until InGen abandoned the lab and released it into the wild. Being created illegally and against the knowledge of InGen and Masrani higher-ups, it is unknown if the Ceratosaurus and the other new dinosaurs were affected by or were even bred to include the lysine deficiency that affected the original dinosaurs. This only known Ceratosaurus also had small horns over the eyes, as well as a longer and more pointed nasal horn like Triceratops, instead of the more rounded bump like the original Ceratosaurus, and was quite a bit larger than the original. It was 30 feet in length rather than 23 feet, and was 12 feet in height rather than 7 feet. The hatchling stage had only been depicted in concept art. Like many baby animals, it has a proportionally large head, with its body being smaller by comparison. It lacks the distinctive coloration of the adult, and its nasal horn and osteoderms are less prominent at this stage. The teeth are smaller and less exposed as well. A Ceratosaurus encountered Dr. Alan Grant and the Kirby family on a riverbank when they were digging through Spinosaurus dung in search of the satellite phone. At first, Dr. Grant thought it would attack him, but instead it went away, having been deterred by the Spinosaurus dung that was on him, suggesting an antagonistic relationship between Ceratosaurus and its larger, stronger, and more aggressive neighbor. However, in the script for Jurassic Park III, Carnotaurus was originally supposed to be the dinosaur that the group encountered at the Spinosaurus dung site, but during filming, Disney's release of Dinosaur featured a Carnotaurus as its main villain, and to avoid any conflict, the Carnotaurus in Jurassic Park III was replaced with a Ceratosaurus. This could be why the Ceratosaurus in Jurassic Park III has a color scheme similar to the Carnotaurus in Disney's Dinosaur. It is revealed that there were some Ceratosaurus on Isla Nublar at least sometime between the destruction of Jurassic World in 2015. However, bred illegally and long after the Isla Sorna incident, they were not planned to be an attraction in Jurassic World at all. Ceratosaurus also made an appearance in the Netflix series Camp Cretaceous. In the watering hole episode, two of the main characters have a run-in with a Ceratosaurus, but it goes away to drink water with the rest of the dinosaurs at the watering hole. In another episode, a red Ceratosaurus attacks the group, but is watered away after a flare shot. Later in the series, it is seen once more when the red Ceratosaurus is hunted and killed by the Scorpius rex, the world's first hybrid dinosaurs whose grotesque and exaggerated features forced Dr. Wu to keep it frozen and hidden. Ultimately, a report released by the Dinosaur Protection Group in 2018 implied that Ceratosaurus had gone extinct on the island. The Ceratosaurus, or horned reptile, was one of the earliest complete fossils discovered in the United States. Ceratosaurus lived in time with other dangerous theropods and it was equipped to fight back. This makes Ceratosaurus a beautiful but deadly addition to your Jurassic Park. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.